Hello and welcome again to Money Tips. This is Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate, enjoy more money. And today I want to talk about tax returns because in the UK the last day to file an online tax return is the 31st of January. You have another deadline back in October where you can file a paper-based return by the end of October. But you don't have to wait until the end of the year. You've got the whole year from the 6th of April of 2019 to file your tax return, and the final day, the final day is the 31st of January. And yet last year 1 million people missed the online deadline, the online tax return deadline, and most of those would have had £100 fine, which sounds to me like £100 million for the tax people just in fines, automatic fine. You just get that, you pay it, and then it goes on. If you don't do your tax returns, penalties start kicking in at £10 a day and so on. And to be honest, you don't really want to be coming to the attention of the HMRC or Internal Revenue or whoever the tax people are in your country. You don't really want to, be flagging up as a late payer. You're one of those people, you're always getting behind, you've been fined, because then they're more likely to come and sort of, let's have a look at them. Why are they always late? So the best thing is to get it done early. Now, 700,000 returns were filed on the last day, on the very last day. I mean, they're all taking a chance. Now, I've got to hold my hand up. I've done this myself. I've actually been on to the accountant, and she's asking for last minute things, and I've said, all right, there it is, and the tax returns have been filed on the last day. But why do we go through this? Why do we go through this pain every year? Why is it left to the last minute? Now, we know that a deadline is something that gets us motivated, doesn't it? Certainly with me, like if you have to hand in an essay or you have to do anything, it's always the last day that we get that done, and it's somehow that deadline gives you that motivation to get it done. But I'm going to give you a few tips really to avoid having that pain of that tax return deadline, or missing the return and getting the fine, or coming to the attention of the tax people. And the first thing I would say is if you're lazy, or you're just disorganized with your paperwork, or you don't like getting all your receipts in one place, there's easier ways of doing it. First of all, you can use one of the software applications like Xero. There's loads of them. I don't want to sort of plug in any, but there's loads of tax software apps that you can use to just either take a photo of the receipt that you get, and then it automatically goes onto a spreadsheet, so that you've got them all in one place. I keep a spreadsheet, but it's still a pain in the neck really doing spreadsheets, because sometimes you get an email about something and that's your invoice, and you have to then open up the spreadsheet. But there are easier ways of doing it. There's lots of apps out there to help you do it. Now, secondly, you could also hire a bookkeeper. Now, hiring a bookkeeper in the UK could cost you, 20, 30, 40 pounds an hour. When I had a business, we hired a bookkeeper who used to come into the office and put all the stuff on Sage program, which I never understood. And in fact, we lost a load of information because the bookkeeper left and we couldn't access it anymore. So, but there are a lot more simple applications than Sage, and most small businesses don't need Sage. It can be done much easier, or a simple spreadsheet. But hiring a bookkeeper online, a virtual bookkeeper that you can find from sites like Upwork or Pay Per Hour, and there's lots of different sites you can use where you can hire a bookkeeper for as little as $6 an hour, and that some of these people who are $6 an hour, okay, they're abroad, they're not going to come to your house and do it, but you just have to maybe send them a photo of a receipt, and they'll do your bookkeeping for £6 an hour. And some of these people are actually chartered accountants based abroad. They might be based in India or something, but they pass the ACCA. They're chartered accountants. They're more than qualified to fill in a spreadsheet or populate Xero or even Sage. They can do all of that. They can even file your tax returns for you. Now, the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant, well, the accountant is a qualified accountant. We don't have to be qualified to actually call yourself an accountant, but if you want to be a chartered or certified accountant, it would take probably 5 years of study and a lot of work to become qualified. And they can give advice to you, tax advice, as well as filling in your tax returns. But that's the least of their jobs. They're interested in bigger fish. So actually compiling your books and compiling your figures is usually the job of a bookkeeper, or as most people would just do it themselves. But if you don't like doing it, or you haven't got time to do it, you're running a busy business, then find a way of getting somebody to do that for you. And one way is to have a virtual assistant, which you can search for bookkeepers, and there's thousands of them out there that will do this job for you, and save you that pain. The other thing you can do is automate your system so that you're not continually chasing money. You collect your money up front, you charge up front, so that you've got the money in the bank. It's on your books, it's on your sheets, and it's there. You're not chasing up money and finding out who owes you money and that sort of thing. And I give the example of my plumber guy that comes around to do stuff, and he never charges up front. He even put a boiler in for a friend of mine, which the boiler alone cost £1,000 and all the stuff, and he's put the boiler in, and he didn't charge up front. He went out and bought the boiler and everything, and I don't think she hasn't even an invoice yet. So that's crazy. He's got cash flow problems immediately, and when he comes around to do a job, he always says, well, I'll pop an invoice in the post. So he pops an invoice in the post, and then it's got his address, and you have to send him a cheque. I think now he has moved on slightly. He does actually allow you to pay the money into his account from your phone app. But before, he used to have to send a cheque to him, and then he has to go down the bank and bank the cheque. Then he has to, record that he's had that money in. And he's sitting at home at night doing invoices. I mean, he works bloody hard, this guy. He's out at 8 in the morning till 6. He's so busy, you can never get hold of him. But then he's got to come home and do his invoices and his bookwork. So that seems to me to be crazy. I've said to him, get yourself a credit card machine. Because I know another guy who's a locksmith, very successful locksmith. He's got 2 shops as well, selling all sorts of stuff and locks and keys and all that stuff. And he comes out to do a job. Let's say you get locked out or you want a lock changed. He comes out, he's got everything on his van. He doesn't have to go running back to Wix and all this sort of stuff. He's organised, he's got everything there. And he says, right, here's the lot. He gets his right. He's done the job in about 10 minutes. Then he says, here's your bill. And he's got his credit card machine in his hand, or you can pay him cash, obviously. He's got his credit card machine. You put the card in, it's done. He's happy, he's got his money. I'm happy that I've paid it, and I don't have to worry about getting an invoice and forgetting it and writing out cheques and paying. I'd rather just do it there and then. And he is really organised. He doesn't look stressed. And the point is, he's got the money up front. He's not going to be chasing people, because if you've got cash flow problems in your business, that means you're always catching up with things, right? Because you're laying out for materials, you're spending your time, and then you're chasing people for money who may or may not even pay you. I had a builder once that did quite a big job for me, and he never asked for any money up front. He never even sent me an invoice for about 6 months. And then he said to me he was owed £100,000 by another customer that he said, they're taking me for a ride. I said, why don't you charge them up front? Why didn't you charge for the materials at least? He said, well, I said, why don't you charge me up front? He said, I've got an honest face. Well, anyway, I paid him, so don't worry. But that to me seems bonkers in business. So there you go. So I would say use one of the apps so that you're not late with your taxes all the time, because a lot of time it's to do with compiling the information and getting it to your accountant, or maybe getting it so that you can put it on the tax return. And I would recommend using someone to file your tax return. Doesn't have to be a chartered accountant. It can be there's lots of tax services that might only charge a couple of £100 to get your tax return in, so it's done correctly. And I wouldn't attempt it myself. So I would definitely recommend that. Secondly, hire a bookkeeper if you don't have the time or you don't want to do it. I hate paperwork. I hate those sorts of things. So I'm hiring a bookkeeper to do it, and it's a virtual bookkeeper that will cost me about $6 to $10 an hour. And you don't need them for every hour, do you? You might need them for a couple of hours a month, maybe 1 hour a month. You don't need to have these people full time. So you send them all this stuff for that month. They'll tell you how much time they've spent on it, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. But it's not a lot of money, is it, to get it done properly? And the third thing you can do is organise yourself so that you've got a system for charging and collecting money. So you need a system that generates invoices. because I mean, this plumber guy, he generates them, I think, just on a Word document, which is a lot of work. And it's inefficient. So find an efficient way of generating your invoices and charge up front. Don't, you know, I know another guy, he's an immigration advisor. He said, no, you can't charge up front. People haven't got the money. I said, well, why are you doing the bloody work? If they haven't got the money, why are you taking on the work? He said, oh, they'll pay me monthly. And now you look at him, he had £40,000 of outstanding debt because he wasn't charging up front, and he was believing these sob stories that people haven't got the money when a lot of them have got the money. Because when I was in business and people said I haven't got the money, I said, well, come back when you got the money. And some of them come back within half an hour with the money. So, they'll always spin a line to sort of, if they can hold back that money, they will. And, once the job's done, their motivation to pay you is diminished by about 100%. So when you're up there, your motivation is high when, you've got to get that tax return in, you've got to get this work done, your pipe is gushing water out of the ceiling and the plumber's there and said, right, the fee is £200. Are you going to pay him? Yes, you'll bloody pay him. But if he goes and does the job and then he goes off and then sends you an invoice 3 weeks later when it's all dry now, you might say to yourself, well, oh, that was a lot of money, 200 quid, £200, and it took him 5 minutes to turn the stopcock off. I could have done that myself. Well, yeah, but you didn't, did you? So the motivation, the propensity to pay you diminishes after you've had that job, and it diminishes down to zero to the extent where they think it's unfair what you charge them. So charge up front, get paid, pay yourself first. Don't wait for people. Don't give credit. You're not a bank. If they want credit, tell them to go to the bank or get a credit card. That's the people who give credit. I'm not a bank. I'm not a credit card company. All right, that's my little rant on getting paid up front. So those are the tips there. A couple of other things happened today. The coronavirus virus has hit Chinese stock market. Now, if you invest in Chinese stock market, which I don't, but their stock market has taken a dive due to this coronavirus. I think the stock market has been closed due to the Chinese New Year, but it's starting to hit the world. There's a pandemic on now. In fact, while I'm talking to you, I should be wearing my mask, but I won't for now. But the Chinese central bank apparently they're going to put a couple of $1 billion into the stock market to keep it going. Now, this also worries me that all these central banks in Europe and America and Japan and now China are pumping billions into the stock market, and that's what Germany did in the 1930s. They did something called printing money. Now they call it quantitative easing. They printed money, and what did you get? Hyperinflation. I don't think you can artificially store up the market. You can't artificially shore it up. You can't artificially keep the market high. The market is the market. If you keep trying to pump money in, then you're going to be like this ERM crisis when we tried to hold the pound, and the pound got broke by a guy called George Soros. He broke the pound against the UK because it made sense on a business front. We just couldn't keep that pound up. And then we come out of the European exchange mechanism and things got back to normal. We didn't join the euro, thank goodness. And that's why we're able to pull away from the European Union without having to untie our currency. And life is getting back to normal today, isn't it? Now, if you listen to this in a few weeks' time, I'm sorry, but as of today, it's the Monday after Brexit Day, and the world doesn't seem to have caved in, does it? I went down the supermarket, and there was bread on the shelves, and there was food there. I was surprised. I thought we were going to have a massive food shortage. I went to the chemist to buy some paracetamol, and there was still stuff on the shelves. There was medicine there. I thought we were going to have a massive medicine shortage. If you want to, you can even go out today and buy a sandwich. There will not be a sandwich shortage, and the world hasn't collapsed. In fact, the EU have been nice to us. They're saying, "Oh, Britain, we love you. You did so much for us. We're sorry to see you go." Well, why didn't you tell us that before? We may not have left you. No, seriously, they are being nice to us. And Michel Barnier said we can have a trade deal. Oh, we can have a tariff-free trade deal. Having said that, they want our fishing rights, but they're already talking about a trade deal. We haven't even gone into the negotiations yet. People said it couldn't be done, but it can be done, and we can stand as an independent nation, and we can prosper as an independent nation. I'm convinced of that, and I think in the long run it will be a good thing. Now, a couple of other things. The city regulator, the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority, have asked credit companies, not ordered, to go easy on persistent debtors. People are always in debt. They said you shouldn't charge them so much interest, and you shouldn't have these penalty fees. You should try and help them. Oh, well, I'm sure they'll agree with that, won't they? So there are a lot of people in debt, and it's probably at record levels now, and yet the credit card companies are still charging exorbitant interest rates, aren't they? I remember when interest rates were 15%, 12%, 10% base rate, 10% base rate, right? So when you've had your mortgage on top of that, it was 12, 13%. And yet credit card companies in those days charged around, some of them were 18%, 19%, 20%. And now base rates are what? 0.75, not even 1%. And what are the credit cards charging? 15, 16, 17, 18%. Some are 40%. Overdrafts are now 40% with the base rates at 0.75. So something needs to be done about that. And no wonder people are in so much debt, because they make it so easy to borrow, don't they? They call it easy credit when it should be called easy debt. There's adverts on telly saying, you can have an Ocean credit card, so easy, and they have music in the background, or cheerful music, while they're saying, get an Ocean credit card and consolidate your debts and all this sort of stuff. They make it sound so easy that people are sucked into this and they don't realise it can be very difficult to pay that back, and it can take years. So there you go. That's all for now. Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate, enjoy more money. So make it this year that you are going to get yourself organised, get your tax return done, so that next year you're not in this panic. And these are for the 10 or 11 banks that may have to submit a tax return. Not everyone has to submit a tax return, by the way. If you're a normal PAYE, basic rate taxpayer, you probably wonder what I'm talking about. What's he talking about, a tax return? You only have a tax return if you've got a certain amount of investment income, or you've got property income, or you're a higher rate taxpayer, or you're self-employed. But once you fill in a tax return, they keep sending them to you. They don't let you go. You can't leave. They're like the Moonies. You can join them, but you can't leave. They'll always know where you are, and they'll always find you. That's the tax man for you. So thanks for listening. Have a good evening. And if you need to go out and buy a sandwich, there's plenty left, so don't get into a panic buy. Thanks very much. Bye for now.